So excited to be here with Kim Rittberg. Welcome to the podcast, Kim. You spent 15 years at Netflix, People, Us Weekly. You built the video unit from scratch at Us to $100 million sale. You're the definition of high performing talent. And then you left. I find that super intriguing. And I heard a little story that I definitely want to, that you were actually answering emails while in labor, level of commitment. So I thought it would be amazing to have you on the show to talk about career, talk about development, how you sort of track that, talk about fear, safety, security, confidence at work. And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Tell the viewers a little bit about what you're doing now and
Sure.
some of your career journey.
Sure. So now I am a communications coach and confidence coach for executives, managers, basically helping people own their voice and build their influence both inside companies and outside. So that looks like an executive or a manager who's going on podcasts or who's speaking to their employees or pitching things in meetings, which literally everyone is doing. So it's really about owning your voice, owning your confidence, and building that influence through communication. And so now I'm the keynote speaker on those topics, really breaking through fear, hitting your goals, and speaking with confidence, whether it's externally, whether you're on LinkedIn, you're giving a seminar, you're doing a TEDx talk, or you're on a podcast, or internally. You know, a lot of times the most influence you're going to have is in an 8-person conference room. So it's really that piece of it. And I got here after about 15 years in media. As you mentioned, I was a TV producer for many years, writing, producing, going out with camera crews around the country, covering politics, inaugurations, but also red carpets and entertainment. It's an amazing career. And then at one, I built the video unit for Us Weekly. I was a big part of, when they sold for $100 million. And then I worked at Netflix. And one day I found myself working during childbirth. And that was definitely my epiphany to rethink what I really wanted out of my career.
Yeah, I, find it so fascinating building something to 100 million and then leaving and walking out. What does the company actually lose beyond just filling your seat when a key exec walks out of a role like that?
It's interesting. I think it's so funny because probably why I am successful is because I always sort of just think about what's next. And I do look back, but I don't think, oh gosh, what could they have done differently? I think that the things that I now teach people, executives, managers, independent contributors, are the things that I probably wish I had learned and honed earlier in my career. And I wouldn't say that it was any industry's fault why I left, but I stood back and said, okay, this is my second kid. So actually, I built the video unit with my first kid. I had 2 babies, like Us Weekly video unit baby and then baby Lily. And actually, honestly, with one child for that first 2 years I was building, it was actually great. I had an amazing team. I had a very supportive boss. That was a highlight of my career. So I really didn't have any issue with how I was treated. I actually had that period was amazing. I do think I just really started to think about big picture. How do I want my life to look? And so for me, it was, what do I want life to look like in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, having 2 children, loving what I do, but thinking, there's got to be some other way to do this. Now that you're asking me, from the sort of professional development, corporate development standpoint, there's so much happening in the working world. I think there needs to be a lot more support for parents. I think parents need to be able to see other parents thriving, being home for dinner with their kids, not stressed out, working. And I think some companies are doing that, but I wouldn't say it's across the board. I see a lot of parents super stressed. It's often moms taking a step back. I'm not really here to judge whether or not those parents should or shouldn't be doing that. I think that everyone should just make the choices that are best for them. I think, if companies want to support people in the different stages, particularly parents, I think that they need to look around the office. I think they need to see who the role models are. They need to see what are people's hours like. How are we making accommodations for people in various ways. So anyway, but that's kind of what I think about now. But I think that, I think there was just a lot of things that I just realized that I would like to be doing and crafting my career in a different way.
Just to go, it's really interesting, and your story is not uncommon, right? Are you feeling optimistic, hopeful that, like he kind of alluded to, that companies are changing the norms around those things? And the way that I see it is kind of like we bring our whole selves to work, and if we're parents of young children, that's that. Like there's sort of this, we used to think like, oh no, it's home life. And then there's some sort of like magical transition, like that show Severance, I think, where it's like all of a sudden, no, and you're at work and your work self is completely different from your home self, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Would you feel confident or hopeful that things are changing in the right direction when it comes to that sort of stuff?
Oh my goodness, that's such a good question. I mean, I'm in year 6 of my business. Sorry, I'm like so bad. I should have counted. One, two, two. I'm in year 6 of my business, so I think it's individual by individual. It's company by company. I mean, I think nationally, like there's still not really national. I live in New York, right? Nationally and statewide, there's really not enough of the childcare support. There's not enough like. The first few years are really hard. And if you're not going to accommodate and really understand that for parents, you're going to have parents dropping out of the workforce. I'm probably somebody that the workforce would have liked to keep in. I'm not saying that as a narcissist, but really, truly, I was a high achiever and I was a good worker. I'm probably the type of person you want to keep. And I think that, companies, I think every company needs to say, how are we keeping people? Look around. Are we losing people? At what stage of life? Are there things that we can be doing to keep them happier, have more understanding? I think there's a lot of that. And it's hours in the office, but it's also like, if you get to leave at the right time to then go home for dinner, but then you still have a bunch of hours at work on your laptop at home, it's still going to create burnout. So it's like, even, also thinking about this always on digital era, thinking about holistically, how does that build a life for people? Are they really off? Are they really getting that time to like feel rejuvenated and actually be mentally off and with their family? And I think that's a part of it too, because like there's this always on era that, oh, you're not at the office. Okay, but if you expect me to respond to an email within 15 minutes, I'm not really with my family.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And there's these interesting like second order and third order effects in the positive direction. So, for example, we know from research that leaders, in particular male leaders, so men who have young kids, and in particular daughters, become more empathic leaders themselves. So it's like, yes, you become a parent, and on the one hand, if you're a high performer, like, on paper, your performance might suffer because you're tending to a young family. But then there's these other added benefits that come. In theory, you become a better individual because of the effect of being a parent, which you bring to your team, which you bring to your direct reports. So I think would you agree that it's just sort of seeing the bigger picture of like what these things mean for organizations and for leaders and teams?
Yeah. And, I think isn't it every job people say, select your next boss, not your next job. And it really does depend on who you work for. But how do companies scale that? Because if it's only good for parents who have a boss that's a parent, well, that's not really scalable. I do agree with that. I had a boss who he had children, and so there was definitely a level of empathy and understanding, both for children, but also like when my dad was in the hospital, he was like, "Oh my God, of course! Like, don't even think about it." I think there's just that level of empathy in both directions. Just understanding there's more than just this computer and that deadline. Yeah.
Yeah, Nick and I talk a lot about being able to choose your boss. And you kind of said it with your first child, you had a great boss. And I have found over my career, like the person I work for has such a profound impact on my happiness, my engagement, my ability to give at the organization. What advice do you give folks at early stages in their career of how to think about that? Because there's so much like, I would not like to be a new grad right now trying to figure out where I go work. I feel like that is such a challenging, and we're blessed to have a lot of interns come through Hatchproof and kind of hear firsthand like the challenges that folks are having entering the workforce. But what advice would you give them, Kim?
I think there's a few things. I think about this also. I've guest lectured at Syracuse Newhouse School, and it's like people in their junior and senior year. And so it really makes me think about, okay, if I were just out of college, what would I be recommending? I think there's a couple of things. So I think there's the like first few years, just put your head down and get experience. Like every experience, a good experience. We all had those terrible first jobs and those amazing first jobs, right? Like, I mean, I had a job where a woman would tell me to check the fax paper and turn each paper over and see if it wasn't double-sided. And then if not, flip it over and put it in. It would take me like hours. I'm like, oh, that's how you want to use me? Okay. Like, that's
We
kind
might
of a
have to
weird
put
task.
a footnote on what a fax is.
Oh, sorry. I thought this probably. Oh,
No.
I thought ancient people listened to it. It's like it's like a gramophone. A fax machine is like a gramophone, guys.
Yeah.
It's like a gramophone. It's people used to use it during the industrial era in America. Anyway, I think that in the beginning of your career, it's like say yes to everything. Like every job is a good job. Just learn, and any job that you're adding tools to your toolbox is an awesome job. I do think that this is something that I think about now, and as I coach people in careers, is start to really think about, like, not in a selfish way, yes, but just for yourself. Like, what do I want to be doing? What do I want to be learning? How am I showing up in meetings? Like, the things that I work with people on now are things that I wish I knew when I was 22. Number one, in every meeting, like, you're always selling, you're always pitching. And I didn't think about that. I was literally always pitching. Like, one of my first jobs in TV, you'd have to pitch your story ideas. So you're in this big bullpen in this newsroom, and I was like 25, and there were people from, age 24 to like 65 who had been there for decades, and you have to pitch your story idea to all these people, and it was so stressful. But that's one example where I actually knew I was pitching, but you have to really own your voice and own your perspective and not second guess what you're saying as you're saying it. It's it's vocal tone, intonation, it's confidence, it's all of those things. But from young people up all the way through is this idea of like owning who you are, both internally and externally. Because there's a lot of people who are really good at their job. But if people don't know that you're good at your job, they're not hearing your accomplishments, they're not hearing you speak with confidence, they're not hearing you pitch in a meeting, you're really losing a lot of the capabilities for you to grow as a person and as a professional. But if you want to climb the ladder and people don't see what you're up to and they don't see all this amazing work you're doing, you're going to lose out on opportunities. And I honestly learned that so much later than I should have. Like, I wish that I had learned the skills that I'm now teaching people so many years ago.
Yeah, it reminds me, early in my career, I had a job at Walt Disney, and I'll never forget it. And we were having a meeting with Rogers Communication on doing some partnerships, and a gentleman walked in. His name was Gary Murphy, and he was, I think, like vice president of marketing at Rogers, and I was in awe of this person. And my boss was in the room. My boss's boss was in the room, and at that time, we were talking about SMS campaigns with Disney and Rogers and how we could work together. And, it was like an hour-long meeting, and Kim and Nick is going to be really surprised. I didn't say a word the entire meeting, right? Very unlike, and I had all these ideas, right, of how we could have worked together. And, at the end, Mr. Murphy was walking out of the room, and he shook my hand, and he said, "In life, you should have a speaking role." And it bothered the shit out of me. I remember going to my boss, Paul, and saying, "Hey, can you believe, like, this is what, this person said?" And, everybody at Disney is super nice. He's like, "Oh, brush it off. It's not a big deal." And it actually fundamentally changed me. And from that day forward, when I did have something to contribute, I always did it. I always shared. Years later, like a decade later, I was cleaning my mom's basement, and I found a presentation deck with Mr. Murphy's card, and I sent him an email with the impact he had made in my career. And within 30 minutes, his EA actually responded. And at this point, he was the head of the Blue Jays for the Rogers team, and asked me to come into his office, and which I did in Toronto. And he started by apologizing. He didn't want me to be impacted that way. Are you kidding me? It changed the trajectory of my life. And that's a very tough thing for somebody young in their career to figure out and know that they have a voice to share. How do you do a lot of confidence building. Tell me about that a little bit of how do you actually muster that up when to contribute in a meaningful way like that?
Yeah. And I also want to be clear that I am a very confident person, but there were so many points in my career where that confidence was not translated into looking for opportunities, being proactive and telling somebody what I wanted. Like I worked in TV as a producer. So that's a behind the scenes writer. I might interview people, but I'm not on TV. And I actually wanted to be a reporter, an on-camera reporter. So it was like, I wouldn't be writing for someone else's voice. I'd be writing for my own voice. I started in TV, when I was 25, maybe 24, I forget. I didn't solicit for an on-camera job till I was 30. I waited 5 years to apply for on-camera jobs. I was already so overqualified for those jobs. Like I was like writing and producing for national news. And then I was like, now I'd like a local news reporting job. And I think that that's the piece about confidence is you can feel super confident in certain areas and not confident in others. And so first, I think that fear holds a lot of us back. So why did it take me 5 years to pursue an on-camera reporting job? I did end up doing it. And at that point, honestly, I realized I did it I did it on the weekends when I was a national news producer during the week. So I was working 7 days a week for like 3 months. And I realized actually it wasn't the path I wanted. And it was fine. But I look back, I'm like, why did it take me 5 years to pursue this thing when I had the skills? I know how to communicate. I am a good writer. I love people. It was just, and it really made you think about what are these things that are holding us back? And it's often fear. And that's something that I do a lot. I do a lot of keynotes on fear. I do a lot of coaching on how fear holds us back. I have a lot of people who come to me and say, I want to be more public. I want more people to know me. I want to be a thought leader. I'm like, great. Let's work on your message. Let's get you on camera, on video. Crickets. And I'm okay. When I first started coaching, I'm like, okay, well, you know what you're talking about. You feel confident in meetings and person-to-person meetings? They're like, yeah. Like, how do you feel in a sales meeting? Fine. How do you feel in a 4-person meeting? Fine. Turn on the video? Frozen. Totally frozen. So I just realized there's just a lot of stuff happening in our heads that we're not being honest about. And this really stepping back and saying, where is fear holding me back? What is the fear? Is it fear of failure? Is it fear of success? Is it fear of judgment? Is it like imposter syndrome, right? Fear that I'm not really good enough, that I'm some sort of fraud. It's very important to actually like really, really identify that, because until you know what's actually holding you back, you can't cut through it. A lot of people are like, no, I'm not good on camera. That's not a thing. That's just a skill. It's just a skill. Like, sure, are there some people who are going to be broadcast reporters and some people are going to be actors? Great. But the rest of us, it's just a communication skill you can build. There's no like magical, fairy dust that some people have and other people don't. Like, besides that little top percent that are really professional communicators, it's not a thing. So I think it's really important to say, okay, where is fear holding me back? And then I have this sort of 4-step process that I actually take people through to say, first, you got to identify the fear. And then we have to take these other steps to actually break through the fear to get to that next goal.
I love fear as an emotion because it's so interesting. And if we go back to Imran's story, for example, there's a counterfactual or another hypothetical case with another young gentleman in his early career who has that exact same experience, and the outcome would have been radically different. It would have caused him or her to shut down, right, because of that fear. Where Imran obviously saw that, and I'm assuming you felt afraid or you felt some sort of negative emotion, but instead he was like, I'm going to use this as an opportunity, and those doors opened. In your experience and in your coaching, do you see it as a personality trait, like an individual difference? Or is it more of just like a general mindset shift that somebody can get to through coaching and conversation and maybe some therapy as well?
Yeah, you're talking about fear as a construct. Yeah, I think that I think in the world, obviously, we have all different sorts of people. Some people are more risk averse. Other people are more pro risk. Some people are extroverts. Some people are introverts. Some people are confident. Some people are not confident. And that's actually extroverts aren't always confident and introverts aren't always not confident. Like, it's not exactly how people might assume. fear can hit people everywhere. And I absolutely think it's something that you can strike through. And the main thing that I think is the most important thing is desire, and having a desire that's worth it to break through the fear. So for me, I was working in the hospital, and I knew at that point I wanted to work for myself. I had an amazing career in media, but I just realized I want to build something for myself. That's the only way I'm going to have the freedom to just kind of be in control of my schedule, right? Be there for my kids when I want to pick them up. But the other piece was I actually wanted to have a bigger impact. I loved working in media, but you're working on specific projects, you're telling specific stories. I actually wanted to help more people and have more of a voice and be able to share my voice. It took me 2 years to start my own business. It took me a full year to start my own podcast. I'm literally an award-winning executive producer of video content. Like, there is no reason why it would have taken me 2 years to start my business or 1 year to greenlight my own podcast. 100% that is fear. And the only reason I did those things was because desire was on the other end of it. So I had those voices going, your old media peers, they're going to think you're such a wannabe influencer, a narcissist if you start showing up in social media. You're like, what is your business going to look like? Are you really an entrepreneur? Like, all of the negative voices were really loud, but my desire to actually take control of my career and be in control of my life, my professional life, my hours, and have a bigger footprint was honestly so strong. And that is the only thing that made me do that really hard inner work to get through it. And I think that it's a matter of, you need motivation. Desire and motivation, I'm using them interchangeably. You need motivation. It cannot be extrinsic. It has to come from within you. It has to be more than just money. It has to be something bigger. So there's the motivation piece. And then there's that confidence piece. Like, you need to start looking in the mirror and saying, I can do this. I deserve to have a voice. I deserve this next promotion, this next role, a more visible path, whatever the thing is, but truly believing it. And whether that's, the mantras in the mirror, therapy, all of those things, mindset work, coaching, like, you have to do the hard work of saying, I deserve this. I want this. I believe in myself, and having the motivation to that very specific goal that only you can identify.
Love that. I love that. And I think it's such valuable work to help people kind of identify where their blockers are. And, I know mine, it's imposter syndrome. And even at this stage in my career, it's like, I probably wake up once every 2 weeks and say, what am I doing? Right? Like, what am I doing? And I know that when I started building Hatchproof, I made a very conscious decision to do it publicly. And I said to myself, if I'm going to fail, I want everybody to know I'm failing. If I'm going to win, I want everybody to know. And so that's really great. Where you think the biggest opportunities right now lie in terms of organizations and careers? And there's a lot of AI, and I think there's a lot of fear out there. And, we talked a little bit offline about psychological safety, and does that exist? And I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
So I definitely think that as AI and technology is such a bigger and bigger impact everywhere, the human skills, both the how you think, your capabilities, like your actual intellectual and social capabilities, is super, super important. But being human, like, there's going to continue to be so much AI work out there, and the only thing differentiating us is our humanity. And so that's how I think about it, is those like soft skills, social skills, but also the intellectual skills, not soft skills, but really understanding how you connect with people, both in the office, out of the office, in the hiring process, like that stuff. And I work with a lot of people in their external presentation and internal presentation as well. When you think about it, you're on social media, right? You can identify AI slop like that. So the person who's showing up as themselves and being real and being authentic and being sincere, you're going to follow them and you're going to connect with them. And internally in a company, that person who maybe got some AI help to write the speech, but put their own spin on it, right? Put their own jokes in it. Didn't just like read what AI gave them like in a teleprompter like a robot. we're building those person-to-person connections. And you're hearing that even from like, the heads of companies, like even, Instagram's head, Adam Mosseri, he said something like, the most important thing you could be doing is creating like truly authentic content, because there is so much out there now. And AI is getting even better in every area, both in hiring, in companies, but also the content piece of it. AI is getting better every single week. So what do we really have at the end of the day, right? We should be using artificial intelligence to highlight our human intelligence, to highlight our emotional intelligence.
I love that. Nick, anything to add?
Yeah, so much. We have
I have so much to add. Thanks for asking.
so much. See you later. No, we at Hatchbrook, Ren and I talk a lot about costly, honest signals, which used to be these things like a piece of content. Like back in the day, before typewriters, like a handwritten like note and then a typed note was still required a degree of effort for us to get our thoughts out on a page, and writing, as we know, is not easy. So now with ChatGPT and all these different LLMs, that can happen in literal seconds, as we know. So that's no longer an honest signal. When it comes to resumes, cover letters, these things don't serve as actually reliable indicators or diagnostics of our in-role performance or how we would show up in the workplace. So like you said, Kim, what do we have left? Well, we have just us, like our humanity, our emotions, how we interact, the extent to which we're vulnerable with others, like that sort of stuff, which AI is, who knows where it's going to be in 10, 100 years. Like we may no longer exist, but that's another podcast episode. So I'm seeing this whole shift of, okay, if it's not written content, if it's not a resume, if it's not a CV, even if it's not a university degree, what's left? And it's just us. It's the human. It's our personality. It's our motivation, what intrinsically motivates us, and these sorts of things. So just a reflection. But we have one final question, Kim, which we ask all of our guests on the show. So we were talking about AI. When you do use AI, and I assume you do responsibly, when you do use your favorite AI, do you say please and thanks?
Wait. You had such a thoughtful thing that you just said. I was like, wait, I want to respond to that. One thing I want to say to you about that humanity piece is people, when they're kind of networking or applying for jobs and stuff, it's like the elevator pitch, right? So AI can talk for you. AI can send your resume out. But like, you think about it in a networking meeting, right? Or if you're schmoozing with people still need that elevator pitch down. Like, I'll still go to things and someone's like, my job, well, I'm kind of a this, or I kind of help people do this. And I'm like, we need to work on your elevator pitch. Like, I need you saying exactly who you are with confidence, with a smile, engage people. Cause yes, AI can help you write that thank you card, but like, how happy are you when you get snail mail? When I get snail mail, I am the happiest person ever. It goes on my fridge. It's in my nightstand. Like, no one ever sends me mail except for New Year's cards or Christmas cards. I love a good card, So it's the same thing with like, don't rely on AI to like write your resume, write your bio, write your website. Go to that networking event and smile and be confident and have your elevator pitch like super locked up. And that's everywhere, right? Both on social media, interpersonally, whatever. So it's like sometimes we just rely on AI and all that as a crutch. You still need to show up really confidently, really owning your voice, really owning your message, and understanding what makes you unique. Sometimes we're so reliant on AI. We're like, nah, AI can write this pitch for me. AI is going to write this email for me. Yeah. And then the person reading it knows that AI wrote it and didn't see your hand on it. So, okay, that was my point. Thank you. Sorry. Do I say please and thank you to AI? I'm a growth mindset type of person. So I used to say, please and thank you. And now I'm like, ChatGPT, do this thing for me.
Nice.
No, I don't say please and thank you anymore.
That's the most, I think that we're have to go back, but that's the most, seems to be the most common responses. I used to, but I no longer. So we're going to keep tracking the responses that people give us. But I think there's some sort of psychological insight here for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can see the chart now. But Kim, we've really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much for coming on. And where can people find you?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube at Kim Rittberg, Rittberg. I also have lots of really fun free downloads on my website, kimrittberg.com. I have free downloads on how to be a better public speaker and how to be more confident on camera. So you can grab those. Just send me a message on social media and just say that you heard me here.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.